Hey folks, so I wanted to take some time just to talk a little bit about what happened for my pick'em prelims and then do my pick'em for the group stage, the new legend stage. I think it's supposed to be called the new legend stage, but it says group stage right here in game, so I don't know. We all know what we mean by that, right? The prelims is kind of like the old major qualifier, and now we have what was the old group stage, but just the top 16, right? And so as you can see from the pick'em prelims, you know, I kind of got the sausage in a lot of ways. For one, FaZe did drop a game. They did still wind up advancing really early with a 3-1 record, so it's not like they got smashed or anything like that, but they did have that upset loss to Vegas Squadron, and so the 3-0 dream did come to a horrible end for me. You know, G2 and Cloud9 were the two teams that did in fact go 3-0, and those were teams I mentioned in my previous video that could do it, but I just went with FaZe, and, well, I was wrong. So there you go. I should still get some damn credit, though, because FaZe advanced. So come on, gang. Give me some points, because FaZe did make it through. Then you have Quantum Bellator Fire, which was probably the 0-3 option for a lot of people, alongside maybe, like, Flash, which I almost picked goddamn Flash. In my video, I was hovering over it for a while. I talked myself out of it by saying that they might have a little bit more individual firepower. And the shittiest part is that I even was kind of thinking in my head, you know, Quantum Bellator Fire would play Flash in, you know, an 0-1 or 0-2 match, and whoever lost that match would wind up being the 0-3 team. And I was totally right. I just so happened to think that Flash would beat QB Fire in a head-to-head, and I was wrong. So QB Fire actually made it out of the damn group. They're one of these teams down here. How is that possible? Doesn't make sense. Of course, their journey was pretty light. I mean, their wins were against Flash, who were coming into the tournament, you know, basically bringing two players back off the bench, you know, and they were definitely not in the best of shape coming into the tournament. They played Envy, who was using a stand-in. And then they beat their, you know, fellow CIS team from the CIS minor, which was Avantgarde, which Avantgarde actually got in the better of Quantum Bellator Fire at the CIS minor. I was actually there commentating some of that. So, yeah, you know, job well done. They were able to make it through, so props to them. So that's that. As far as what happened down here, I mean, I got most of these right. You know, the only two I got wrong were Renegades and Team Envious, and obviously I couldn't foresee that Envious were not going to be able to use RPK for their last game, and that certainly did hurt them a little bit on trying to make a comeback to get to that last slot for the majors. So that certainly, I think, factors into it just a little bit. I think I also just had a little bit too much stock in Renegades, apparently. You know, this is a team that was doing really well when you think about the Asia Minor and iBuyPower Masters and what they did in Shanghai and just how they were looking in recent times. You know, Naf was really coming into his own. Nifty was developing really well, becoming more consistent with the op. And Renegades just didn't get the job done. You know, they lost to Vegas Squadron, which, fair enough, Vegas Squadron shocked everyone. We'll talk about that in a second. And they wound up losing to Liquid with the stand-in. I think that was the big one, right? If they would have been able to beat Liquid, who has really struggled to get out of this group, and, you know, is using a stand-in, like, that's the win you probably need to get, because, you know, they wound up having a final match against Mousesports to decide if they would get that third win they needed to advance, and that just wasn't going to happen, was it? So there you go with that. Other than that, the teams that did make it through that I didn't pick, obviously, QB Fire, we already talked about that. Definitely a shocker. Vegas Squadron, you know, that's a team that I saw having an outside chance to come in just because of how they've done at previous things I've watched. But for them to come out 3-1, beating FaZe, taking G2 to overtime, that's pretty great stuff, man. You know, definitely props out to Vegas Squadron for the run that they had. And other than that, pretty much things kind of went as I expected. I thought Space Soldiers would limp in. They actually came in pretty heavy with also a 3-1 record. So, you know, props to them. Granted, the only, like, really big name team they beat was Mousesports, so they did have a little bit of a lighter affair. But to be fair, there wasn't a lot of heavy hitters in this, depending on how things sorted out. So there you go. That's that. So let's get into the group stage. Let's talk about things. 3-0 team. So because I think Cloud9 and G2 are playing each other in the opening matchup, if I'm not mistaken, for the next stage. So that really makes things difficult for me, because if Cloud9 and G2 are playing each other, either one of those teams could win that game, in my opinion. You know, Cloud9's gotten the better at G2, I think, at E-League Premier, and we know that G2's kind of had their ups and downs, and Cloud9's looked really strong lately, so you might favor Cloud9 just a little bit, but G2 definitely looked improved, you know, with Shock's kind of making some adjustments. You know, he's not second opping anymore. He's apparently kind of started sharing responsibility for the in-game leadership of the team with some other teammates. And some of these adjustments, we've definitely seen Shox performing really well so far. So I could definitely see G2 beating Cloud9. I could see it going either way. So I don't want to pick either of those teams just because I already know what their opening matchup is, and I think that it's a close matchup. So for me, some of the top candidates to go 3-0 based on the opening matchups, because Astralis is playing Mouse Sports, by the way, so picking one of those two teams for your 3-0 when you know they're going to play each other in the first round, and that's going to be a tough matchup, I think. That's also probably a team you don't want to go for. So at this point, I'm just trying to think most off the first match. You have FaZe taking on Fnatic. So FaZe would maybe be a team you would consider going 3-0, but Fnatic actually isn't a slouch. So I don't know that I want to go there, but SK's playing Space Soldiers in the opening matchup. So you could maybe think about SK, I think, as a 3-0 candidate is because of their opening matchup is against Space Soldiers. Or you have to say, yeah, FaZe will beat Fnatic, and we're going to go 1-0-1-0. Now, think about this, though. If SK does beat Space Soldiers and FaZe does beat Fnatic, SK could play FaZe in the 1-0 matchup. And SK has this ridiculous mental advantage against FaZe, right? So with that in mind, I'm going to have to go SK. I know they're using Phelps as a stand-in and all that good stuff, but I can see it coming down to like SK beating Space Soldiers, maybe FaZe beats Fnatic. SK has the edge over FaZe. Because, you know, Shox is playing Mouse Sports in the opening matchup, I think that's too hard to call. Cloud9 playing G2, too hard to call. So of the remaining teams I think are top candidates to go 3-0, I would just pick SK just based on the opening matchups and based on what could happen in a 1-0 situation if SK goes up against a FaZe or something like that. Obviously, if SK and FaZe can avoid each other in their opening matches, both teams have a chance to go 3-0. And I'm kind of going this wild card here a little bit because I think a lot of people will sleep on SK because they don't have bolts and they're using Phelps instead. But I think they're still going to be strong enough, man. Apparently, they're going to be using Phelps just like they use bolts. Like, Phelps will simply be plugged into bolts' spots and will be kind of forced to play a little bit like bolts instead of playing his normal, more aggressive style next to Fur like he was doing when he was a starter for this team through most of 2017. But he's still a really skilled player. I think he can do it. And I think because everyone else is going to be comfortable in what they're doing, you know, this means that people like Fallen with his ops should still be really impactful. You know, obviously, Fur and Cold so sick. This will allow Cold to still be more versatile. He won't be locked into playing a peripheral position for Phelps to be able to be part of the main attack group. So, yeah, I'm liking SK here. They're definitely going to advance, but I'll go ahead and pick them 3-0. 0-3. We already know. Do we really need to discuss it? Listen, QB Fire. Listen. You're going 0-3 this time. Love you guys. Congrats for making top 16. Cool to see it happen. But their journey was pretty light, if we're honest, in the prelims. And I don't see them faring against the more top-tier talent very well coming up. So, yeah, I'm just have to put them 0-3. I know Vince said that he would eat a boot live on stream if they do somehow make it to the top 8. I will allow him to eat that boot and digest it and, you know, express it from his body, and I'll eat that if Clan and Bellator Fire make it to the top 8 live on stream. There you go. Lose my Twitch account because I'm sure that would not be allowed, but you get my point. It's not happening. QB Fire, you will lose. 0-3. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Who advances? FaZe is an obvious pick here. Again, I think that head-to-head against SK, there's definitely a mental block, but I think against anybody else, they should be able to get the wins they need to make it through. It is certainly true that they did kind of, you know, because they lost the Vegas Squadron and stuff, maybe people are kind of a little bit worried about them, but, I mean, they're still one of the best teams in the world. There's no way they don't make it through. And, yeah, I mean, I've already talked a lot about FaZe when I picked them 3-0 in my other video, and so I'll just leave it at that. That's an easy lock for me. Cloud9, another easy lock for me. Played really well so far in the preliminary stage. They have been really on top of things lately as a team. I mean, pretty much the only team they struggled against is FaZe. Like, they've gotten just battered by FaZe, absolutely dominated by FaZe. Like, they look like they just absolutely get shut down against FaZe when they play them in series, but they've proven to be competitive against anyone else of the elite teams in the world. They've had some great top 4 finishes. They had the title at Denver, the title at Power Masters. Particularly their E-League Premier performance was really impressive. Like I said, they look sharp so far throughout this preliminary stage. I mean, they didn't really have any struggles. I mean, they dominated Mousesports again after they had, of course, beat Mousesports over in DreamHack Denver. So yeah, I mean, I just think they're looking really strong. So I'm gonna go with Cloud9 to advance. I'm not necessarily saying these two teams are like gonna be also 3-0 or 3-1 or something. I'm just kind of randomly picking these teams. Kind of. I don't really have a system in mind when I'm in the order I'm picking them in. But I think both these teams will definitely make it out of the groups. I think Cloud9 is actually probably the best chance NA has ever had at winning a major. I know that's people are gonna be like, what? What do you mean? Liquid made a final. Liquid had a top 4. They've made a couple of deep runs in majors already. What do you mean? Well, we couldn't really know that going into the tournament. Like, I don't think, obviously in hindsight we can say that, but going into those tournaments, I don't think anyone expected them to go that far. Certainly not a finals appearance. So, yeah, I mean, I think going into something, not having the gift of hindsight, I think you can say this is probably one of the best chances NA has ever had at perhaps winning a major. They just need to avoid FaZe, really. I mean, it feels like that's the big thing that they have to be able to avoid, or figure out a way to finally conquer FaZe if they were to meet up against each other. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that for Cloud9. Don't want to go too crazy in depth analysis. Want to keep this video a little bit short. I'll go ahead and stick with G2 to advance here as well. I think that they look pretty good in the preliminary stage. I think the adjustments that they've made has certainly led to Shox' form increasing, and therefore the overall impact of the team being better. I mean, they have Kenny S, one of the best operators in the world. They have Shox apparently turning back into better form. I just feel like this is a team that has the power to make it, right? I mean, it certainly had their stumbles this year. There's no doubt about that, right? When you think about the fact that they fell out really early at the last major, but then they had the immediate bounce back of DreamHack Masters Malmo. Since then, it's been ups and downs, but I have to go with G2 here to make it to top 8. I think that they're hungry. Their adjustments look like they're helping them, and I'm just going to go ahead and ride with them to make it through. So then who's next? I'm going to go with Mousesports. This is a pretty obvious pick to me. They have been really strong lately. Outside of getting kind of blasted by Cloud9 in the preliminary stage, they, were able to make it out. Yeah, they did have the upset loss to Space Soldiers, but other than that, this is a team that's just looked really strong. I mean, they certainly, looked really good at the ECS finals when they took FaZe. The distance in that best of 5 on all 3 maps were very close games. Obviously, they had that win at ESG Tour Mykonos. They've had a couple other good finishes, so the talent's certainly there, and so I'll definitely go ahead and pick Mousesports to go ahead and advance. Here's where it starts getting a little bit tougher, but I'm going to go with Astralis. Obviously, Device is back into the lineup now, and he's going to be playing a new role, kind of playing more of a lurk rifler role from what I saw in an interview, and Dupree will keep opping, which he's proven to be able to do well enough during this whole last 2 or 3 tournaments when they were using Dennis and Rubino as stand-ins. And I just can't see them not making top 8. Like, yeah, maybe they'll struggle in the best of 3 because, Device is just getting back. You got to wonder if he's going to be a bit rusty. You got to wonder how he'll adjust to his new role. You got to wonder if Dupree's going to be able to keep it up with the AWP. You just got to wonder, if they've had enough time to practice with Device and get everyone back on the same page and work off that rust from Device, who's been out for a little while. But I think that regardless of all that, they're still a good enough team to where they should be making it out of this group. And so I will be taking them to advance. Then we have our last 2 teams. And, this is where I'm going to pick... you can kind of already see the stickers that I have bought, but I'm just actually contemplating maybe buying one right now to maybe change my mind. I think the performances of North and Gambit have been a little bit shaky as of late. Like, Gambit obviously did really great at the last major, but then they did really great at the last major, but they had Zeus still, right? But after that, they went to, I think it was a DreamHack Masters Malmo event with Fitch, and they actually still performed really well there. Wow, I can't pronounce words. But since then, it's been kind of ups and downs, really. So I kind of struggled to pick them as a heavy favorite to make it through. I certainly think they could. Virtus.Pro, I mean, outside of Epicenter, and making, I think it was top 4 at PGL Krakow. Outside of those 2 things, pretty much the entirety of 2017 was kind of disappointing. Lots of ups and downs. So it's hard for me to bank on VP, but they always seem to show up at majors, man. They always seem to show up at majors. I was actually looking at it. I was writing an article about this, and they have basically always maintain legendary status ever since the majors began in 2013. Do I bet against all of that history and the ability for them to always find a way? Do I bet against that? That's really a tough one. But I did want to pick one at least kind of sleeper pick, and that's going to be Fnatic. I don't think many people are picking Fnatic coming out of this group, but I wanted to make one pick that was kind of a stretch, kind of out of the ordinary for some people, you know, kind of a dice roll. And I feel like Fnatic might be that sneaky team that could come through this group stage. And I'm mostly saying that because when I look at some of their most recent results, like at EPL and ECS, which are the last two lands that were out there before this major, they were getting some cool best-of-1 results, right? And yeah, they did lose some best-of-3s to FaZe in a couple of tournaments, but that's FaZe, and they pretty much murk everyone except for SK a lot of the time. But they had a couple of cool best-of-1 wins in some of these tournaments, and, you know, Golden seems to be kind of getting into his own. It seems like we're seeing a little bit of a return to form from Flushing and Crims lately. Lekro's a guy that seems to be someone that can usually frag pretty well. He seems to be developing pretty well, as he has been doing ever since his Godsent days. So I don't know. I just wanted to kind of pick a little bit of an out there on the French pick, and that is going to be Fnatic. So I wanted to put that one out there. And then last but not least, I have to make that tough call on who the last team is going to be. Ah, man. I'm going for Virtus.Pro. I'm just going to buy it right here on stream. You guys get to see it. I was thinking about picking Na'Vi, but I can't bet against all that history. I can't do it. I'm going to pick Virtus.Pro. Na'Vi just scared me too much in that preliminary stage, man. They really did. They did make it out, obviously, but they weren't even competitive in some of their losses, and that really scared me. They obviously had the big DreamHack winner win. I think Na'Vi definitely could make it through over a Fnatic or a Virtus.Pro, but I don't know. I wanted to be a little bit different by picking Fnatic, and Virtus.Pro is hard to bet against history, man. And they've always seemed to show up at majors, and they've never failed at a major yet, really. So I'm gonna have to go with them. So there you have it. Those are my picks. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want deeper analysis about some of these teams, I did write an article I'll put in the description below that you can check out. Other than that, though, thanks so much for tuning in, and catch you next time.